Today, we're going to be walking through the 9 sequential steps of real estate development and how to spot the friction points to make sure that your project finishes with as much efficiency, on time, and under budget. My name's Toby, and for the last 15 years, I've worked as an end-to-end development specialist. I've worked on $20 billion worth of real estate development over 4 continents. And I specialize in turning complex projects into wildly simple procedures and steps and frameworks to help you guys, to help you gain uncommon productivity in a notoriously unproductive industry. First, we're going to run through each of the individual stages and the key milestones that go along those stages. And then we're going to get into the absolute granular and see where those friction points are. And stay tuned till the end of the video because I'll be answering a question I get asked probably once or twice a week. And that is, which of these stages are the most complex? Which cause the most difficulty? Where do the big wins and losses happen within each of these stages? So step 1 in your development journey will be your market research and feasibility. This is when you start to get an understanding of you've got a plot of land or a couple of plots of land that you're identifying could have development on. And you're looking at the market analysis to see what else is in the area, what is currently selling, what is likely going to be received well by the local community. So you choose your sites and then you start to run early feasibilities where you look at a very high level budget. How much is it going to cost to purchase the land, build the development, and then exit at the end? And then your exit strategy really is whether you are selling the asset that you've completed or you're going to remortgage it and get the cash out and move on to another project. For the most part, development is a relatively linear process. The only thing that really changes is the funding at the start. Where do you get your cash from? And what you're going to do with the building when it's completed. Are you going to sell it? You're going to lease it? You're going to refinance it? So the main focus on step 1 is where are we going to build? What are we going to build? And why are we going to build it? Then we're going to move into step 2, which is the funding, the structure, and the budgeting. So now we understand roughly how much our development is going to need in terms of capital injection. We look at the capital stack. Where are we going to get that money from? Capital stacking just basically means who's going to pay for this? Are we going to use our own equity? Have we got savings? Are we going to go to the bank and get debt, or have got a load of rich friends and family who can help us finance this project for a return? And I think the thing that people forget in a lot of developments is you don't just have to have one method of financing. You can have 2 to 3 different sources of financing as the project goes through. But once you've got that understanding and agreement, you then go into the funding agreement. What is the length of time that people are going to be funding your project, and what are they getting in return for it? Is it an interest rate that the banks are going to charge you in order to use their capital? Is it an investor who wants a piece of the pie? They want a bit of the profit at the other end of it. And that is all detailed in the legal documentation of the funding structure. And of course, within this section, you're going to have an overview of your high-level budget and your cash flow. So how much is it going to cost and how long are you going to need that money for? So in this section, the highlight is the funding. Who's going to fund it? How are you going to fund it? How much do you need? How long do you need that money for? Then we move into step 3. We've got the money, and now we're going to look at actually doing our due diligence and buying the site. Now, this is where we really need to identify the early risks and then take legal ownership. Now, what we mean by this is making sure that the risks are mitigated in terms of the land use and the technical risk that's in the ground. True story, I've worked on a development before that was a joint venture with the military of the UK, the Defence Infrastructure Organisation, and there were tanks, full-blown military-grade tanks, just buried in the ground that we didn't know about. So the remediation works on the ground used to cost us an absolute fortune. So that's why before purchasing, you want to be doing as much due diligence in terms of the technical risk for the site. Are there services in the ground? Are there easements? Are there rights of way that hikers have across your land? Really doing this in-depth legal search is an absolute priority here. And all of this will be honed into the land purchase agreement. If you do have ground that needs remediating, which means it needs to be uncontaminated or it needs to have work done to it before you can build on it, and let's say your land is looking at a £10 million cost, and these works are going to cost you £1 million to negotiate that value there back down to 9 million, which is the actual true cost and the true value of it. And we'll probably do a separate video on all of the checklists you need to go through in terms of how to know what to look for when appraising land. So the key concepts here of can we build, what's the risk, let's buy the land. Then we move into step 4, which is the concept design and approvals stage. Now here, this is where we're going to turn the spreadsheets we've got here, the Excel documents that are just, funding requirements, calculations on how much money we can make from this development, into actual 2D, 3D plans, pictures, CGIs, which are computer generated images. And we're going to start to balance the aesthetic of the building that we're creating, the functionality of it, the cost of that, and the compliance. And the way we do this is we get an overall master plan or an initial concept created by architects, signed off by the municipalities or the government authorities to say, this is the general idea of what we're going to be building. Please, can anyone state now if they have any issues with it, and we'll refine it and get it to a position that we can all agree is best for not only the environment we're moving into, but for our investors as well. And then this is where we really need to start fleshing out the budget and start our value engineering process. And we'll likely do an entire video on value engineering, because for us, it's one of the most key important factors throughout this entire process that should constantly be reviewed. It means refining the building to make sure that it is as efficient as possible in terms of cost versus usage. So if you were to have a house that is in a relatively mid to low income area, you wouldn't spend your budget on putting golden taps on every bathroom, or you wouldn't use the finest imported Italian marble to put in the kitchen, because that would raise the cost of the house so much that people in the area couldn't afford it. Now, however, if you're in the Middle East and all of a sudden you're selling villas for $10 million plus, you're going to need that gold taps. You're going to need those fine Italian marble, because that's really going to be the element that sells it. So value engineering works both ways. How do we add value without absolutely breaking the budget? But how do we also make sure that the budget is aligned with the value that we want to be putting into our development? Agree with all of the parties of what the main focus, back to the market analysis, is on what you want to be building. And then finally, refine it and agree with the stakeholders to move to the next stage, which is going into more detailed design. And this is where you'll start getting legal approvals to build what you want to build. And this is where you really need to start to flesh out the architecture and engineering, the systems, the mechanical, the electric, the plumbing, the specification, what is really going to be in this development. And again, we want to start another value engineering exercise as we start to refine it. And what we do in this stage is it's no longer pretty pictures. It's how much concrete do we need to put into the ground? It's how large do our foundations need to be? It's what is the slab thickness of each individual floor to make sure that the building is, going to be standing up straight. It's how big do the columns need to be in order to make sure that the structure of the building never fails. So this is where it really starts to get technically quite complex, but also the budget can get a lot more granular and a lot more detailed. So we need to make sure that this infinite loop here, the architects are suggesting things and the cost managers are making sure that they are staying within the budget. And then finally, once we've got all of this detailed design ready to a level where it's ready to go out to the tender stage, then this is a great time to have stakeholder engagement, stakeholder sign off, specifically for the municipalities or the government bodies. They need to be absolutely certain, and they actually need to sign off and give you the legal right to be able to build what it is that you've designed, as well as so do your stakeholders. They need to be aligned that the budget you've now got in place, the design you've now got in place, met their requirements at the very start of the project. So the final takeaway here is get to your finalized best design. And best doesn't mean the most expensive. Best doesn't mean the most aesthetically pleasing. It is what ticks the boxes for the government bodies who are signing off your individual development, the stakeholders, the architects, and the end user as well. Then into step 6, we go into the tender, procurement, and contracts stage. Now, this is where we're going to be selecting our contractors and suppliers. And the best contractors will always try and give you the project complete in the best amount of time, the quickest amount of time, while at the best, cheapest cost, while still making their margin and making sure they hit all of the quality requirements agreed with all of the stakeholders prior to this stage here. Now, this is quite a rigorous process. And the one takeaway here is the more detail that you can give the contractors, the more accurate your prices are going to be. And it could be, and what we've seen time and time again, is people rush the design out the door. The tenderers can't get a full picture of what they're building. So tenderers and contractors, they will always price in the uncertainty. They will inflate their prices if they can't get that granular understanding. So then as their prices come in, if more detail and more information has become available, you then give them that information and ask them to do a best and final offer or a last and final offer where they just retweak their price based on new information. And this is really where you finalize the suppliers and the material selection, and then you execute the contract. You actually put the main general contract in place to agree the project will be built in this amount of time for this amount of budget, subject to none of these bad things happening. So the takeaway here is refine the agreement, get absolute clarity on what is being built, and finally appoint the contractor. Now we move into step 7, which is the construction stage. And this part is all about the program, the cost, the quality, and the management, because the main contractor, the guys on site, the guys on the construction element, their main job is to bring this project in as per the contract, on time, on budget, to the quality. Now, if you've done this part really well, this part is a lot easier, but very rarely do the construction guys get all the drawings and information that they need at the start of the project. So you're still trying to finalize and hone in design while you're actually building the thing at the same time. And I always enjoy going to developments, and I always enjoy going to sites because it's like a military operation. Some of the sites I've worked on have had like 2,800 people working on the development, and the guys who are running, they are in charge of the health and safety of everybody on that site. It's making sure that everybody gets home safe and without any risk. Unfortunately, I've worked on projects where there have been many, many fatalities, and it really puts into perspective how much of a military mission that building a construction can be, because people can lose their lives, and it needs to be treated with that. And the best contract managers, the best construction guys I've ever met are the guys who have that military-like personality, who run their developments like an absolute tight ship. But the main focus here that everyone will be driving towards and trying to achieve is build with care. Get it built on time, on budget, to the quality that's agreed. Now we move into step 8, and this is where we're talking about sales and marketing. And the real focus here is to maximize the market interest. So if you've got residential homes that you're selling, or if you've got an apartment block of flats that you need to lease, or if you've got a new commercial block that you need to get offices or people moved into those offices, or a brand new retail park that you need to get people into, you want to be starting this sales and marketing efforts around the start of construction, probably a little bit before construction, so you can start to build interest. And it's all about your launching strategy, your pre-sale strategy, if you're selling houses off plan, which means you're selling them before they've actually been built, or if you're trying to draw interest to a certain area for retail or commercial units, which are offices. And it really needs to be targeted branding. Can the people you're selling to afford what you're actually selling? There's no point trying to target the £1 million villas to those that just are trying to move into their next family house. You need to make sure that who you're selling to are the right people to buy those developments. And then finally, it's the legal sale and the close and the leasing. Now, whenever you have a exchange of a sale of a house or a leasing agreement for a apartment or a office space or a retail space, there is always some legal documentation in place. And the main focus here is sell the thing, lease the thing, fill the thing. Whatever the exit strategy was, this is when you actually start to getting the money back in the door, because otherwise, Mr. Investor's not going to be happy. And finally, the handover. This is where everybody starts to move in. You hand over, close operation, we close the construction down, we move into the actual operation phase, and we have a fully functioning building. Now, we'll start to do our snagging, and our snagging means that if there is a scuff on the wall before someone has ever moved in, then that needs to be rectified, because this is the part where if you just bought a new car, you want to be driving that car off the lot and you want to put your foot down and it just goes and it works fantastically. That's the whole point of when you hand over a building, all of the equipment needs to be working. You don't want any light bulbs out. You don't want any leaks coming through. You need to make sure that everything is working as it should be. The air conditioning, if you've got it, isn't going to stutter and stall. This is the part where there is a monumental amount of quality checking and commissioning on all the equipment that needs to be done. And again, checklists for this are absolutely vital. We look at pilots and we look at astronauts, and they all have a pre-flight checklist that they go through. And that's where handing over or any of these stages, checklists are absolutely vital. And just understanding the system and the expectation really needs to be top priority. But the main point here is moving in. This is where we exit. And if you're in the business of leasing, this is where property management comes in, making sure that tenants are sticking to their end of the agreement, keeping the place clean, keeping the place tidy, making sure it's not going to fall apart after their tenure. If you're in build, sell, forget, then this is where people move in, take full ownership, and it becomes their house. Okay, now we're going to be stepping into the absolute inch stones. And as you can probably tell, within each of these milestones, like market analysis, there are several jobs that need to be done. So it's going to be hire a consultant, get the report done, understand the report, put the report into the feasibility model, get all of the assumptions. Assumptions are how much is it going to build us to cost. Get all of your assumptions tested. And this needs input from your cost consultant, your program team, your technical team to make sure that everything can be built. I'm not going to go through each of them. I'm going to go through the main critical points. Design, development. Here, you've got a team of architects. You've got structural engineers. You've got mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, plumbing engineers. You've got the municipality who need to approve what you're going to be doing. You've got your cost consultant here. There are so many people who are so involved in this project that 91% of projects actually fail on program and budget. And the main reason for this, according to McKinsey, is because these overlapping areas or this fragmentation of having so many people involved in the project can often slow down. Because if you're trying to do this constant loop of refine the building, cost it, there's a lot of conflicting ideas here. So that's why it's absolutely fundamental to have somebody who works across the entire process. And that's what I've been doing for 15 years. You work as the golden thread. So the person who needs to make the decision on should we have the curvy, expensive windows can say, actually, that's not part of the feasibility that we agreed. That's not the market that we're trying to go out for. Let's keep it straight windows, or let's keep it simple cladding on the building as we physically can. Or do we need to think about using prefabricated bathrooms because they have such a easier time to install, or they're faster to install than doing traditional bathrooms in our high-rise building? We can say yes, because the program is such a monumental part of the achievement and the goals and the key performance indicators of this development that we need to make sure that we prioritize things like this. And then finally, you can already see it coming, but the construction. You've got guys working on the site clearance, the foundations, the structure, the electrical works, the roofing, the finishes, the painting, the decorating, all of these fragmented tasks that need to happen on site. And this is really where we get into the point of how do you stop project momentum from breaking down? And it's understanding what the critical transition points are as you go from stage to stage, as you move from here to here, back up to here. And as I said earlier, planning slow, building fast is really where you want to focus on it. If you can do this stage here and really take your time and get buy-in from the stakeholders and the investors, that if we can have a bit more time to plan, design, get the costs absolutely nailed and get an absolute fine understanding of what the construction is, this part, which is probably the longest part of the entire process, can take 2 to 3 years. This part becomes a lot easier. You buy yourself time and cost savings here. For example, I've been working in the Middle East for the last 3 years. And in the last 6 months, I've been working for a company. And I joined around this stage here. And they were just about to appoint a main contractor. And I said, please just give me a few months to review the drawings, review the specifications. And what I've found is they were paying for the expensive Italian marble in the back of house fire escapes. And to cut a long story short, we did an extensive value engineering exercise and then re-tendered the whole process. We started on site with things like the groundworks and the infrastructure. So the critical path wasn't impacted, but it saved them $80 million on a $900 million development. Just this process here of just refining the design, making sure you're doing those value engineering exercises can save you so much money. And that's where a lot of developers and a lot of people let down their stakeholders, because then you have to squeeze the cost and you're letting down the municipality. Your reputation's falling behind. It all really just stems from having one central person who follows this process, who can really understand where to look and where we need to refine things straight away. And what we find is understanding these friction points and understanding where momentum is most likely to break down. It is a teachable skill, like in more ways than I can say. Like, we've been doing this for years now, and we've noticed that there are a few things. There are literally ways that you can feel the momentum of a project slowing and speeding up. And anyone who works in this industry will know exactly what I'm talking about. But I always say that feeling momentum in a project is like a sixth sense, and knowing how to manipulate momentum to your benefit is like a superpower. And if any of you need help with any of this, you can click the link below, get on a free call with us, and we're happy to help you solve any one of your problems, no matter what stage of development you're in. We've done it all. We're happy to do it all. And we enjoy the problem solving process in this. It's because once you get a good team around you, it's just good fun. Now, as I promised, we stated that we would say which of these stages is the most difficult, which one causes the most problems. Now, everybody usually works in one of these individual stages in the development industry. I'm lucky that I have to work across all of them. And they will each say that theirs is the most difficult. The financing is the hardest. The legal agreement's the hardest. Getting planning approvals the hardest. All of them are the most difficult part. That's going to be difficult. The next stage is going to be just as difficult as the previous stage, because it's all about keeping that momentum. It's all about making sure that each stage has the love, attention, and care that it needs to make sure that you're focusing on the key risks and pulling it forward, keeping that momentum going. If I really had to choose one, I'd go with construction, because like I said, people's lives are at stake here. If you're doing a financial model or you're, drawing a design on CAD, your life's not at risk. Construction needs to be treated like an absolute military process. And the amount of people I've seen hurt or injured through no fault of their own, you really need people who have got the mindset between the ears to really focus on executing a project with absolute certainty, with absolute urgency, while keeping people as safe as possible. So for me, construction is the hardest. It's the most dangerous. It's where the thing gets built as well. That's it from us today. This has been a whistle-stop tour throughout the entire development process. Like I said, if you need any help with this, book a call in the link below. We're going to do a load more videos breaking down value engineering and how to do pretty much each one of these milestones and inch stones step by step. So subscribe if you like the content, and let us know what you think in the comments below. If we've missed anything, let us know. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.